Sandra. Welcome to Asexual Perspectives Awareness Month After Party Day 9. Asexual Perspectives Month was last month, July, celebrating our differences across the spectrum and celebrating our differences across the asexual spectrum and our differences within that spectrum too. So if you don't know, I'm Sandra Bellamy, author of Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, Love, Life and Sex, a celebration of asexual diversity. This is a channel to be educated about asexuality, and I cover lots of different topics, life, relationships, sex does crop up now and again, and yeah, all different parts of aspects of your asexual life, my asexual life. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about how to manage anxiety. I think it's something that can be quite difficult to manage. I've had it since being a child, and I haven't totally gotten rid of it, but I've learned some good techniques to learn to manage my anxiety. I haven't totally got rid of it, so I've still got some of it in me. And I think that's one of the very first stages and steps, is acknowledging that your anxiety is a part of you. I know people would probably disagree with me on this. They probably say, well, you know, your anxiety is separate to you, you know, it's not part of you. But if you've been anxious since a kid, then it's kind of part of who you are. And to separate it from yourself might actually have an adverse effect on you in the beginning, because you know, it's kind of something familiar that you've known all your life, if you've had it since a child, or if you had it for a lot of years. And in that way, it's not good to just like sort of say, well, push it aside, you know. It's good to be able to, it's good to be able to control your anxiety and manage it. But it's good to acknowledge it's a part of you, it's a part of who you are, and to be grateful and thankful for when that anxiety is actually a good thing. So say, hi Martin, I'm just talking about anxiety and how to manage it. I'm saying that if you've had anxiety since you've been a child, for example, for a number of years, many people would say, you know, it's a good idea to think of anxiety separate to yourself. But I actually have learnt the opposite. It's good to actually acknowledge that you have the anxiety, that it's part of you and who you are right now. It might not always be a part of you and who you are, but right now it is a part of you and who you are. Rather than ignore it, push it away, try and rip it out of you, it's better to just be comfortable with it. Do you know what I mean? When I used to teach for the NHS, I used to teach social media for the recovery of mental ill health. And one of the things we were taught in there is how to manage your mental health condition, not to not acknowledge it, not to try and get rid of it, but to manage it. Because when you've got anxiety and you've had it for a long time, the last thing you kind of want to do is get rid of it, in the sense it kind of ends up being your friend in a way. I know it may sound really, really bizarre, but because you're so used to being anxious, it's kind of a part of who you are. To sort of rip it out of you or push it away feels kind of alien, and that can make your anxiety worse. So it's better to just think it's a part of you, and how can I manage this? How can I manage this the best way I know how? Or how can I get some new training and techniques to manage it better so that I become a less anxious person? Now, I have been to counselling for anxiety and depression in the past. I've had cognitive behavioural therapy, cognitive analytical therapy. I can't say that they worked very much, to be honest. You know, what's worked for me is actually pushing myself through my own fears to overcome them. I mean, literally being my own coach and telling myself in my brain, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this, over and over again, until I've achieved one thing that I wouldn't usually do. And so that started off with being in groups, really. I mean, when I was at my last day job for 5 years, I worked in a big department store called John Lewis in Exeter. That's the best retail shop I've ever worked at. And I used to be a fitted bedroom specialist before I was made redundant last year in 2017. And I did love my job, actually. I was very good at it, which is a shame that they cut my hours to part-time so I couldn't stay there. But, you know, when I first went there, I wasn't used to being out for work stews and in groups. I still wasn't at that stage where I could be in very big groups, but I did, you know, I did go out with them because we had people who was leaving dues and things like that. And rather than doing what I used to do and just go home, because, you know, I'm not really, you know, I wasn't that bothered about some of the people at my old job. They just weren't my people. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people, they don't like necessarily my personality because I'm different. But I don't really care. See, I'm past caring nowadays. When I was younger, I would have worried about it, but now I don't give a toss. If they don't like me, that's their problem, not mine. If they want to live a normal, boring life and don't like difference, and that's their prerogative, isn't it? That's the way I look at it. So I'm a lot more confident now than I used to be, but that's only gained through time and through, you know, you have to sort of set little goals for yourself in order to achieve things, you know. I mean, if you're not used to being with any more than one person, then you got to try being with two people, if you can, in a room, you know, or in the outdoors, you know, if outdoors is better because it's less claustrophobic for you. You know, meet up with a friend and a friend of a friend or something, or invite two friends at the same time. But you know, I think work dues are quite good to go to push yourself out of comfort zone, because you're around more people. You kind of have to be there, but you can just sit back. You don't really have to partake if you don't want to. You can just sit back, and I used to sit back and just chat to the person next to me, but I was still in the group environment. So I kind of like, you know, I didn't just jump in and, oh, I'm in a group, I can talk to everyone. It was kind of like I had to ease myself into that environment. Like, although I was quite full on, like, got loads of people around me, like 15 people, which I wasn't used to. Sometimes it was less than that. Sometimes it was like 6, 7 of us. But I wasn't used to it. I was only used to talking one-to-one. It took me a while to get used to it, but I just used to make sure there's one person I got on well with, or reasonably well with, that I could talk to, and that I was okay with. And I think that's what you have to do when you're easing yourself into groups. You have to pick 1 or 2 people that you can zoom in on and that you can talk. So you're still kind of in that group environment to get used to it. But however, you've got someone else to talk to, that one person that you know is like your safety net. And that you know that's good for you, that you can be around. And if all else goes, you know, if something doesn't work out, you can just leave. And you know, if you have to make up an excuse, make up an excuse if you need to, you know, but just have other things planned. So say that you do go out in a group, say have a backup plan. So say you do half an hour and you're feeling really anxious and think, what can I do? You know, like, you could get someone to ring you if you wanted to make her get out, you know, escape plan, if you find it embarrassing to just leave like that. Or you could just, you know, have something specifically that you do need to do, but maybe you bring that bit of thing forward, because, you know, because you realise that you have to get out of the situation if it becomes too much for you. And that's what you have to remember. Like, every situation you're in control of. And I learnt something which was huge in my life. It was like, if you don't like change, which I do not, you have to make change happen for you, not to you. That's a huge secret to overcoming anxiety, or to managing anxiety really well. Instead of all the change happening to you and life just coming on you, and this changes and that changes, if you start making changes in your life and change yourself, change your lifestyle, change your life over and over, keep making little improvements, like take a course, for example, watch a YouTube video to learn something, just do something to change yourself. Oh, you do it the Catman way and say, screw you guys, I'm going home. Oh, you do it the Catman way and say, screw you guys, I'm going home. Yeah. Whatever's easiest for you. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you should be proud of who you are. You should be able to, you know, be yourself and just say, I'm leaving. But some people can't do that. Some people are people pleasers, and they don't like to say, I can't be here. I mean, it's better in life just to be yourself and say, look, I'm going now. That's what is really best. There's a R in there. Cartman. He's a character from South Park. Oh, sorry. I hadn't heard of Cartman before. Thank you, Martin. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, by the way, if you're liking it. It's really important. Thank you. So it's really important, yeah, that you push yourself for your comfort zones, you know, push out of your comfort zone. And I ultimately found that it doesn't matter what counselling you have, what people say to you, unless you take charge of your own life in some way, you don't manage your anxiety well. You feel like you're out of control constantly, because you're sort of waiting and anticipating for all these things to happen, and that might happen. But if you make change happen for you, you're in control of change more, then it's much better for you because you become more confident, and with confidence comes competency, and you get better and better at things. Therefore, you become less anxious at doing them in the future. And you need to be around more like-minded people as well. Like, I didn't realize, when I was little, my parents, they were opposite to me. It's very difficult. I get on really well with them, mostly nowadays, but they're still very different to me, and it can still be difficult at times because they're so different to me and we don't think the same. But I get on better with them than I used to. But when I was a little kid, it was quite difficult because my parents didn't understand me at all. My mum used to say, no, I don't understand you, which didn't help, because if you're not being understood and then you've got confirmation that you're not being understood, you're like, well, where do I go? Who do I speak to? Who understands me? If no one understands you, you feel lonely, lost, left out, like an alien in this world. It's like, well, where are the people? Where are my people? You feel like you're from another planet, like planet Zog or something, and you're like, well, where is everyone? Where have I just fallen on this planet to? Because it's not my home, because no one understands me. And it's really can be soul destroying, I tell you. I mean, it's very difficult for me. I was very depressed throughout much of my childhood. I can remember more bad, upset times than I can good times, which isn't a great thing to say, but it's true. And I think when you're not understood and you've got people around you, I mean, your parents and your family and friends, when you're younger, they really shape your life when you're like a kid at school. And if you don't know any different, if you don't know any people that would understand you or like you, then it's just like you're floating around in the abyss, feeling like, so like, what am I doing here? That's what I used to think all the time throughout most of my childhood. Like, what am I doing here? What's the point to life? I may as well not be here. But I don't think like that anymore. I'm the opposite now. I'm like, oh, life's so wonderful. I have to get out of bed. What's today going to bring? What's going to go on, And part of it's because I live the lifestyle I want to live. Now, when you're living at home with your parents, it's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to stamp your mark on your own life. It's very difficult to live the life you want. It's very difficult to be yourself sometimes if your family is the opposite to you. I mean, you really can't be yourself sometimes because, you're not understood. You're not appreciated. You're perhaps told some things negative about yourself, which actually could be positive to you or someone else. It's just that they don't understand you because they're different types of people to you. And I think when it's coming from your family or really close friends, it's, like loved ones even, it can be life tearing apart, and you blame yourself and you don't want the life anymore. And that's how I used to feel. And I've got, I have to top up myself on happiness constantly. I have to constantly remind myself, like, what's making me happy, what makes me feel good. Like, I go out on self dates a lot, which is so important. I'd really recommend that to helping with anxiety as well, because I know it sounds really counterintuitive, right? Because you don't want to go out on your own because you're like anxious about it, right? But you have to push yourself to go out on your own. People don't care. I mean, if you go to the cinema, there's quite a few people go to cinema on their own. No one cares. The like lights go dark. You're sat there on your own eating your popcorn or whatever, and no one notices. You can, if you're really worried, you can go right at the front so no one can really much see you because they're all behind you, or at the back. I like going at the front. I personally like people behind me, so that if I start laughing, I don't feel weird because they're behind me and I don't notice them. So I do laugh quite loudly in the cinema as well. So it's kind of like, but because they're mostly behind me, it's like, well, I don't even notice they're there. And I kind of feel like it's just me and the big screen on my own a lot of the time, which is nice. So self-dating is something that you have to do at one point in your life to push through that sort of misconception about going out on your own. And once you start going out on your own more, you become more confident on your own and more confident with life as well. And, you're kind of making a change. You're like saying, all right, well, I'm not going to be stuck indoors anymore. I'm going to actually go out and go and do this thing. And by doing that, it can make you feel a lot better. But, with any anxiety, you have to push through it. You're going to be more anxious in the beginning, but you have to do it. You have to do it little by little because you'll never get out of that rut. Do you see what I mean? And if you're around other people that are anxious, it's good because they understand you. But if you're around other people that are anxious, you're anxious all the time. You just perpetuate the anxiety. You just build it up and build it up, and it blows into more and more like a volcano. You are much better to be around some people who have not got anxiety at all or minimal, so that you can feel what it's like to not have anxiety and feel what it's like to be around people who are not anxious. Because if you're always with people who are anxious like yourself, it's great for understanding, but it will just, it'll be just like, oh, I'm feeling really anxious today. I'm feeling really anxious. It's a bad day for me, but yeah, I get you, but it's just so bad. And I know it's good comfort in a way that someone else understands you. And like I was saying, if you've got family and friends or close loved ones or people that don't understand you, then yeah, you do need that support system as well, where people do get you. But you also need to spend half of your time around people that are not anxious. Otherwise, you just perpetuate that. I mean, my anxiety is managed really well by myself. I do a lot of things to manage it well. It's a lot less than it used to be, because I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder level 4 years ago, which I only kind of came out to you guys about at the UK Sexuality conference, and I possibly mentioned it on some of my videos, might be leading up to the conference as well before then. So it's like, I think it's like the second highest you can get. I was really quite high on the scale, and I used to live a very different life, very closed in, only could talk to people one-to-one. Actually, with guys, though, I could talk 1 to 2 people, like me and 2 guys. But if it was women, definitely only one ever. I've always tended to get on a bit better with guys, because when I was bullied, there was more women bullying me at school, to be honest. So, yeah, you've just got to get out. I know it sounds really weird, but you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to push yourself through your fears. You really do. And you have to, if you do it yourself and you're in control of it, it feels better. Because when we go to counsellors and stuff like that, we're just looking for people to give us the answer and to tell us what we want to hear. I know it sounds really weird, but that's what we want. We want someone to tell us certain words. And if they don't tell us those certain words, we'll just carry on going to counselling. We'll carry on being unhappy all the time, constantly. And the only person that can overcome the anxiety for you is you. Seriously, the only person that can change your life and change your anxiety state is you. However, it does help being around people who understand you. I got told by I got referred to to counselling one time. I've had lots of different counselling, but this one particular time, my doctor recommended me go. And these people, they told me you must be around some more people that are like yourself. And I'm like thinking, well, that's not a very good advice, because surely I should be around people who are different to me so that I can expand my horizons, broaden my mindset, and broaden my understanding and sort of scope in life. But actually that person was right, because at that point in my life I had no one that understood me. And so I just felt like I was an alien and people didn't get me. And I didn't have that sort of love of people loving me for who I was. And at that time I didn't love myself for who I was, because I kind of needed that validation. And I think sometimes when you've had so much anxiety and usually depression accompanies it, that you can feel really down, lonely and depressed, and you can feel like you need people to validate you, because you haven't got the strength and the energy to do it yourself, really, in all honesty. And people don't like to tell you the honest truth, but this is the way it is. But the only person that can shift your whole life is you. If you think you're ill, if you think there's something wrong with you, there will be, because it's your mind that's saying that. If you turn around to a counsellor and say, I don't need counselling anymore, and you know that you're perfectly capable of pretty much looking after yourself, or that you do a better job of looking after yourself than they do, if you can say, look, I don't need it anymore, I'm walking away, you've had it, I can look after myself better, then you know that you're doing a good job for yourself. But a lot of the time it's hard to have that strength and that courage, but you have to find it within yourself. You have to, because no one else is going to do anything for you. And the moment that you realise that you need to make change happen for you rather than it happening to you, is the moment. It's like an epiphany. I think that's the right word to use. It's like an enlightenment that, oh right, so that I lessen my anxiety by making things happen for me, by changing my life and changing myself all the time. I'm constantly getting used to change, but I'm in control of it. because I used to hate being out of control years ago. It was a horrible feeling, you know. I felt so out of control. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know really my life purpose. I didn't know where I was heading in my life. I didn't see the point. I honestly thought back then that death was more nicer than being alive, if I'm absolutely honest. But I'm not like that anymore. But because I've changed my mindset and I'm very positive now, I think everything happens for a reason. Because if you think everything happens for a reason, it doesn't matter what happens really. You're bulletproof. It's like your shining armor, like of suit, you know, it's like your shield and your suit of armor, like superhero mindset, you know, like everything's coming at you, but it doesn't matter what happens because everything happens for a reason. I'm a lot more spiritual these days than I didn't even realize until it was a spiritual coach, a guy who's asexual, actually in 2014 I think it was, when I first discovered asexuality. And later on that year, this guy I mentored, and he was a spiritual coach, and he he liked to call himself a spiritual coach, put it that way. And I never realized I was spiritual until then. And then suddenly I'm like, whoa, I'm spiritual. And it was like really quite amazing for me. And it's kind of like spirituality isn't some voodoo rubbish. It's just when you have an intuition in your gut and you listen to it. And when you're anxious, so anxious, you don't listen to your intuition. You don't even know you have it, to be quite honest. You just don't even realize that there's like a superpower and energy within you, and that you can overcome anything if you want to, and that it's mind over matter a lot of the time. It's power of the mind, but it has to come from you. You know, it's no good saying mind over the matter and your heart not be in it. Your heart and your mind has to be in alignment with what you want, and you have to push yourself. You have to coach yourself all the time, constantly. You have to top up on happiness. Like, in order to stop depression coming back, if you got over it, you always have to top up on happiness constantly. You have to be constantly looking at things that energize you, that make you feel good and happy. You know, that's why I take myself off to self dates quite a lot, because, you know, my soul needs it, because I am quite, you know, I feel it in my body. I like feel it. I'm like, oh, I'm feeling really upset at the moment. I need to go out. I need to enjoy myself. I need to get back in touch with being me. I need that freedom and that closeness to myself, you know, and I just need to chill for a bit. I just need to get away and chill for a bit, you know. And life is full of ups and downs, as you've probably realised with this channel, with me on talking all the time, ups and downs. I mean, last night I did a video about the fact that I had a marriage proposal from a sexual guy who probably wanted a visa. He hasn't spoke to me since the video, which I know watches this channel, so perhaps that's why, but I don't care, because, you know, I'm not interested in someone who's after a visa. If they are or they aren't, I don't know, but I suspect so. I suspect they're not really, you know, thinking they're not really honest about living without sex, but, you know, I mean, as a person, they're probably quite nice. I don't know, you know, but it's just like sexuals don't really understand asexuals, do they? They just don't really get us, a lot of them, and not all of them, but a lot of them, and they think they can change us, or they think that we'll change our minds, or they don't really get it, and, you know, so yeah, it's difficult. But yeah, I mean, the only anxiety I tend to have left in me a lot of the time is relationship anxiety. So say someone's you know, someone's not, I'm interested in someone, but they're not interested in me. Like, that's not that big a deal. It's a little bit sad for me in the romantic sense, but, you know, it's like case of what if, but it's actually a relief, because I'm like, well, good, because, you know, I don't have to run the other way. Because if someone's seriously actually interested in a relationship with me, a lot of the time, I'm like, no, now's the time to run out the door, slam it behind me, run for my life, because, you know, I kind of so used to being on my own, and I used to be in abusive relationships in the past, and I don't want to be in them again. I guess I'm so scared and frightened that I'll get with the wrong person again and be with them for a long time, which I was last time, you know, that because my ex had this sort of power over me for quite a while. You know, I kind of like so scared of that. I don't really want a relationship from that point of view, because I've always been happier being single. And if anyone's like really interested in a relationship with me, I find relationships very difficult with other people. And, you know, because I do manage my anxiety really well, I don't notice that I've still got it some of the time in other aspects. But when I'm in or potentially in a relationship, it kind of highlights all my sort of things that might be an issue to other people that's not an issue to me. For example, with my anxiety, Like, I have anxiety, but I've actually a lot better with this, but I have anxiety sometimes over things like toilet rolls. Like, if I get down to X amount of toilet rolls, I panic a little bit, or I used to. I'm not so bad now. Sometimes I can go down to like the last one, which is really unusual for me. But you know, in the past I had to have like 3 or 4 in all the time, and I like used to freak out, like, and it used to be like I used to, you know, I have to get the extra toilet rolls. I have to have, you know, spare things all the time, you know, in case something goes wrong. But you know, I don't actually worry about that as much anymore. And it's like, I used to always have to be on time for things. If I wasn't on time and late for anything, I used to freak the heck out. And I used to be like, oh my God, I'm late, I'm late, I'm late. But now I don't. If I roll up a little bit late, I know it sounds really bad because I like being on time, but if I roll up a little bit late to certain things, there's certain things you can't turn up late to. You know, like I had a job centre appointment this morning, you can't turn up late to that. Because if you get some benefits like I am at the moment, because I'm technically unemployed from redundancy, then, you know, you can't just turn around to job centre and say, oh, I'm late, because they can stop your benefit. But if you say, like, I'd like to be reliable for friends and stuff, but like I have a best friend, and me and her is a little bit more casual about things, like if we're a little bit running late or something, so she makes allowances for me and vice versa. So kind of like I don't freak out about stuff like that anymore. If I'm running a little bit late, I'll just message, like, say I'm a little bit later than I expected, sorry about that. But you know, I really used to freak out all the time. I used to freak out so much. Your mug for today. So yeah, that's another thing. You know, so sometimes with anxiety, it can be kind of good to leave a little bit late by a few minutes occasionally, to test yourself, that you know, to make sure that you can actually stop catastrophizing. Is that a word? I don't know if that's a word. Stop thinking everything's a catastrophe, basically, because if I was just like 2 or 3 minutes late before, I'd literally be in a mass panic, and it'd be like the end of the world. I've done something really bad and the whole world's going to collapse. But it's not like that, you know. It's just making things bigger than they are. And don't get me wrong, I used to like to be on time. I used to like, you know, but I'm slack with myself. I've cut myself some slack, and I think that's another thing with managing anxiety. You've got to stop trying to be a perfectionist. Like, I have been tried to be a perfectionist for so many years, and it's hard for me to stop it, and because I like to do a really good job of things. But you have to not be so hard on yourself. I'm quite hard on myself still, actually. Sometimes I have to remind myself, Sandra, you're doing a good job here, you're doing better than you would have done in the past, you know more stuff now, you know. But it's like today, right, I've been trying to do things, and then all of a sudden I go off at a tangent and go and do something else, which it seemed like a really good idea, and it was, but I had issues with it, which meant that I didn't get my work finished that I was originally going to finish in the first place, because I diverted off to the good idea thing that I then got stuck on. And then I diverted back again, because I'm like, well, you need to finish this work that you've put down on your calendar, Sandra. I'm already getting behind with my calendar. So, you know, that is a bit anxiety inducing. And then, you know, I'll kind of give myself a hard time about it, because part of me thinks, well, you're not working hard enough, you're not doing the stuff you're supposed to be doing. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's all very well saying that to yourself, but at the end of the day, things happen, don't they? And things crop up that you unforesee. And I think you have to give yourself more praise and credit for things. Like, I never used to give myself praise or credit for much in the past. And so one of the things to help overcome anxiety is to actually praise yourself and to write successes down. Like, it's a good idea at the end of each night to write 3 successes down in your diary. Like, what went well today? It doesn't have to be much. It could just be like, you know, if you find it hard to get out of bed, if you're depressed, it could just be that I got out of bed today. If you find it like, you know, like going out for a walk is quite daunting, you push yourself to go out for a walk, even if it's only for 10 minutes, and write down in your diary, well, I went for a walk for 10 minutes. And the more you do that, and the more you log your successes down every day, 3 a day ideally, anything it can be, then the more you'll start to feel good about yourself. I have a success jar, so I literally write on a piece of paper rather than a diary. I put down my successes whenever they happen, and then I just stick them in the jar. So an entrepreneur taught me that on a Facebook Live, like, have a success jar, because it means it's quite quick, easy fix. Like, if you haven't got time to sit down to a diary, or you're not that type of person, just write it on a piece of paper and put it in a big jar is a good idea. And then at the end of the year, what you do is you empty the jar and you see all the successes. So I'll put it all over my bed and I'll see every success I've had, and I'll be like, wow, that's amazing, incredible, because my jar's nearly already full, and it's not even halfway through. Well, it's just over halfway through the year now, isn't it? But it was already full pretty much last month. So So yeah, in order to overcome anxiety, get out of your fears, get out of your comfort zone by pushing through your own fears and boundaries. Make yourself do things that get you out of your comfort zone and that are somewhat anxiety inducing in order to overcome that anxiety and be less anxious. Be around like-minded people who understand you and get you, but also be around people that are not having anxiety, because if you're just around people who are anxious all the time, it's going to make you more anxious and perpetuate your anxiety. And I was trying to say earlier, I don't know if I finished this, that I had a friend who had anxiety and depression, and I got over depression and my anxiety had reduced, and then I started talking to him and my anxiety started going up again. I started getting panic attacks, which I haven't had for years, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, this year I did have the one over my guinea pig. That was off my own bat because I couldn't inject her and she had diabetes, and that was terrible. And my guinea pigs now live with my parents, which is why the banner's across the cage at the back, because I can't inject Angel because I've got a fear of needles and blood. I did try though. I did actually try in the vets, but it freaked me out when they go, oh, but the blood could come back into the needle. I'm like, no, can't do it. Sorry. That's it. That's the end of me. Thanks. That's anxiety, just like overwhelm across the world type anxiety. So, and obviously it can help to get some support, some counselling and stuff. So go and ask for some counselling and things like that. But just remember, you are the shaper of your own destiny in your own life. No one else can actually physically get rid of the anxiety for you. The only person that can manage it is yourself. And the way you manage it is, if you know an event's coming up that's going to make you anxious, you just take all necessary precautions that you can to work through that anxiety and do the thing that you need to do in order to become less anxious, which is obviously some of the time doing what you don't want to do. But you just make sure you have backup plans so that in your mind you're quite comforted either side, if you know what I mean. So, and if you have to say to someone, look, I've got anxiety, say to someone, if they don't understand, don't spend time with them. Limit the time with those people that do not understand you and appreciate you. So although you have to spend time with people who don't suffer with anxiety as well, because it's really important to know what sort of more of a normal situation is, if you like, you need people who also understand your anxiety, even if they're not anxious themselves, because if they don't understand you and get you, it might make life awkward for you being around them, and you want to feel comfortable around them. So, and it, like I said, it's still good to go around like-minded people as well who do understand you. Like, you can join Facebook groups for anxiety and depression. You can, and then you can make friends with people out of those groups who really understand you and get you. So there's quite a lot of different things you can do. And do get some help if you need some mental health help, like counselling, therapy. It is good, like some people have much success with therapy and stuff. I personally didn't have success with counselling and therapy much. I had a couple of counsellors that did support me though, and they would support my career more than anything and all my passions, which I think is another thing. When you're anxious, you need to plough your mind into what you're good at. So focus on all the positives rather than negatives. So focus on what hobbies and interests you like, what you're good at. If you don't think you're good at anything, then you need to get good at something and push yourself to get good at something that you don't think you're good at. Human beings have this way that they can actually learn a lot more things than they can and develop their skills and grow themselves a lot more. And there's this thing where you might inside say, oh, I can't do that. But really, you can learn pretty much anything if you set your mind to it. And you have incredible power within you that you don't even realise. So it's amazing, And something else that makes me anxious, like particularly with relationships, is long distance relationship. I can't do a long distance relationship. You might have known that there's a guy called Ronald who came on this channel. He did actually contact me yesterday, which was nice to hear from him, and said he'd missed me, and I thought I wasn't going to hear from him again. And he said no, even though it's been difficult for him, he'll always be in touch with me, which was nice. But, I can't do a long distance relationship. One is with him in particular. Although I really like him a lot, I still like him a lot now. I don't know him, If a person wants a long distance relationship, they really have to know each other over a period of time, I believe. And, they need to be best friends. And I would need to see them a lot more on camera. I would need to speak to them. And I would need to to have all that before I went into a relationship. And for someone who suffers with anxiety or any form of anxiety still like me, a long distance relationship isn't very good, because if there is any major issues or problems, you can't just sort them out like that, especially with time differences and things. At least if they're in the same country and not far from you, if there's a major problem, you can kind of sort it out a lot quicker and a lot easier. But being in a long distance relationship with someone you don't know, even if you really like them, it's not a good idea. And also, you need to make sure that the person's really good for you in every way. What you initially think is great about them and the attraction you feel, when I'm talking about attraction in terms of asexual, aesthetic attraction or soul attraction, intelligence attraction, just emotional connection, you still need to make sure that you're having time to get to know them. Do you know what I mean? Because, there's nothing, I think, as well, in relationships, like I've learned that it's no good for me just jumping in with a relationship with someone who I don't know that well, because it's just going to induce my anxiety, which is going to mean that I'm not very good in the relationship anyway, because I'm always anxious and worried all the time and nervous. Then I'm always questioning the person. Then I'm always questioning myself if I should be with them. And it just perpetuates, and causes a lot of hoo-ha in your mind. So it's much better that if you are going to be with someone, that it's someone you've known for a very long time, you're really good friends with, and you already trust and like and know. Because that way you should have less anxiety going into a relationship. I think maybe if it was someone I'd known for a long, long time, then it would be better. There's a guy that might come over here that I've known for over 3 years, but he's not asexual, but really supports my asexuality. And it's possible me and him could end up in a relationship, but we could also end up just being friends. But because I know, like, and trust him a lot more than others, maybe it wouldn't be so bad for me in terms of, like, the relationship thing. But it would still be really difficult because I'm used to being on my own now, to be quite honest. Anyway, I hope that's giving you some good tips and hints and pointers as to how to help yourself overcome anxiety or manage anxiety, really. I think overcoming is the wrong word. I think managing is the right word, because although we all want to overcome anxiety to a certain extent, anxiety is still there to protect you. You have to know that not all anxiety is bad, that, if you're out and about on your own, for example, you might start feeling anxious, which is actually your gut telling you, your intuition telling you that this situation isn't right or good for you. And you need to follow that intuition, because oftentimes you are correct. So, don't think all anxiety is bad. It's like I've had an accident where I fell down 11 stone steps before, but because I do have anxiety and stuff, my mind's able to switch on very quickly and think in difficult situations. So it's kind of trained that way. So that's a good thing. And so, like, when I fell head first down the 11 stone steps, which I did crush my chest and hurt my leg, I was still a lot better than what I would have been, because it was really surreal. I went through the air, like I was up there and then fell and like went like that. But while I was falling, I actually managed to think to myself to relax while I was flying through like the air down the stairs, because I was thinking, if you don't relax, it's going to hurt you even more. And that's kind of like part of anxiety training, if you like. Because when you're an anxious person, you're constantly thinking about all different consequences that could happen. You're kind of thinking, what if this, what if that? And kind of like your brain gets used to engaging itself very quickly, automatically on autopilot. So it can be good. When I went to counselling years ago, I had to do the pros and cons of anxiety. And the thing is, you're supposed to find more cons with anxiety, right? And therefore, logically, you don't want to be anxious anymore, because you don't see any good benefits to it. Or the pros of not being anxious far outweighs the cons of being anxious. But for me, it didn't come out that way. For me, I was like, well, at the moment, there's more pluses for being anxious. Like, also, it can make you a really good writer, and I love writing, because when you've got anxiety, you can think in ways that other people don't think. I'm not very good, I'm not making a very good argument for getting rid of anxiety, am I? Because I'm not actually trying to tell you to get rid of it. I'm trying to tell you some of it's quite useful, but it's when it becomes too much. Like, it used to become too much in my body used to be hurting so much, my stomach used to be pounding. I get that now. If a potential relationship person comes along, I can't actually stand it for very long. It's not going to last, because I can't physically cope, because I don't understand them, I don't know them that well, I get worried all the time, and in the end it just wouldn't work. So that means logically I have to be with someone in the future that I've known for a very, very long time. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope that's given you some good pointers and tips. Don't forget to make change happen for you rather than it happening to you. If you don't remember anything else I've said, just remember that. Make change happen for you rather than to you. And the other thing, you've got to be around people who understand you and like-minded, because it will make you feel so much better about yourself and happier to be alive. And it will just give you that boost of confidence that you really need. And self-date as well. Self-date is great for the soul. Anyway, until next time, embrace your quirky and each other's. Thanks, Martin, for watching all the way through. I really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions, you can always post them down below. I can answer them afterwards for you. If anyone else is watching, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that bell icon so you get notified of every time I post a new video. And I will see you on tomorrow's live stream. Take care. Bye.